Okay, hi everyone. This is Jennifer Miller down at the Longmont Yarn Shop, and I'm going to demonstrate for you how to do the flower stitch, which is the stitch that is in the featured pattern for knitting pattern for the crawl called Summer's Meadow. This is an example of it, but here's the actual Summer's Meadow itself in the yellow and gray. And this is designed for a custom dyed yarn in bamboo that I dyed for all of you, which has about 10 to 12 inches of this contrasting color, and then the rest of the skein is a darker color. And here's another one in another colorway with the contrasting color. This one is called Cherry Bark. It's a dark cherry red with a pale gray contrasting color. So this pattern is set up for you to knit along in stockinette, following your asymmetrical, almost symmetrical triangle pattern, and then every time you come to the contrast color, you do the flower stitch, which is what I'm going to demonstrate. The flower stitch is explained very well in the pattern, and it's slightly different on the right side and the wrong side. So the very bottom of the first page talks about the right side, and the top of the second page, that is when you're working the right side. And then here underneath flower stitch, WS is the flower stitch on the wrong side. So when you're on a purl row, you do this flower stitch slightly different, flower stitch WS. So here's how we do it. And I'm demonstrating it with some other yarn, but you'll get the idea nevertheless. It's actually very simple and it's explained very straightforward, so you can see how to do it once you get going. This will just give you a little orientation. So let's say I'm knitting along. I'm on the wrong side row, so this is going to be a flower stitch wrong side. So I'm purling along. Don't really have enough room under the camera. I'm going to move this up. Hold on, everyone. Try again. So I'm going to purl along a few stitches so I can get to the middle of my work. And that's where I'll demonstrate the stitch. But sometimes your flower stitch will come out on the edge. I would suggest you do a stitch or two before you do start on your flower stitch if you're right on the edge of your contrasting color. Okay, so now I'm on the wrong side row, so I'm purling. So I'm going to wrap each purl stitch twice. So when I pull that stitch through, there'll be 2 strands there on the right hand needle. I'm going to do that 5 times. So I'm going to have 5 double wrap stitches. And that's going to be a purl and wrap twice. Oops. Yeah, 5 times. It's quite interesting knitting from through the camera. So, and it's very similar on the other side too. On the other side, you'll see the only difference is that you knit and wrap twice rather than purl and wrap twice. Okay, now when you have the 5 double wrap stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you turn. So turn to the other side of your work and slip each of those double wrap stitches, but drop the extra wrap. So you'll have an elongated stitch because you're going to drop the second wrap. So you'll have 5 elongated stitches on the right hand needle. Now slip those 5 back to the right hand needle, and now your working yarn will be coming out of the last elongated stitch right there. So now you're going to put your needle in from the right hand side of all these 5 together and knit the 5 together, but don't pull the stitch off. Now bring the working yarn to the front and purl through the 5. And then you're going to repeat that 2 more times. Knit in the 5. And purl in 5. and then you'll complete one more knit in the 5. So you have to kind of pull those stitches sort of loose so that you can do all these stitches in those 5, and that now you'll have 5 stitches back on your right hand needle. Now we turn again, because remember we started this back on the wrong side, or the back side, right? And now you just purl, you just continue to purl on your row, purl across those 5, and then keep going across the row until you come to your next contrast color that you want to make a flower stitch out of. 4, 5, there's the last one. Now I have the 5 stitches replaced, and I'm just going to purl across the rest of the row. So what this does is it makes a little configuration of 5 stitches that have been knit together and twisted. So here's what you get when you do that. So there's the 5, there's the twist part underneath, there's the 5 elongated stitches that you have now purled into from the other side. And that's what it creates, this little star stitch. There's another one that's been completed. You can see it pretty well right there. And there's another one. So if you're, now one moment, I'm going to finish this row so I can show you how to do it from the right side, which is really almost no different, except for that you knit and wrap twice rather than purl and wrap twice. Otherwise you do the same thing. You knit and wrap twice, then turn, drop the extra wraps, knit, purl, knit into the stitch, and then turn back around and twist again. I don't know what this is, so don't pay attention to that. Okay, now I'm at the end of the row. And as I say, the pattern is very well written, so it'll explain to you exactly how to do it. Okay, now I'm ready to start the right side row again. So if you're doing the flower stitch from the right-hand side, the only really trick to it is that you move the stitches back and forth and you have to turn once you do the double wrap stitches. So from the right side, let me just knit a few stitches here. Okay, so now let's say I've come to my contrast and I want to do a flower stitch right here. So I'm going to knit and wrap twice here and do that 2 times, so that each one of these stitches should have 2 strands of yarn sitting on top of the needle very close together. You'll have that 5 times. And then you turn 3, 4, 5. Now turn back to the back side. And then just the same thing, you're going to move these stitches to the right hand needle, dropping the extra wrap, so that gives you the 5 elongated stitches. Then move the 5 elongated stitches back to your left hand needle, and again you're going to knit, purl, knit into those 5. The last one is always a little bit tight, so you want to pull that one a little looser. Okay, so there's the 5. 1, 2, there are 5 there somewhere. And then, so you're going to, there's another one I think. Okay, so now you're going to knit, purl, knit into the 5 without taking them off the left hand needle until you've done all the knitting and purling into those 5. And then you'll just turn back around and continue, knit the 5 and then knit back across the row. So that's what creates this little cluster of twisted stitches that make a little flower, just like that. There's one. It kind of tightens up when you continue knitting across the row, so that's what it should look like. And it'll look, the finished piece will look pretty much like that. So come down and see me at the Longmont Yarn Shop. I'm showing the whole pattern, the custom dyed yarn for your flower stitches, and the pattern is free. Happy yarn crawling.